This story shows how being kind, forgiving, and caring can change the way people act and grow. Mercy means trying to understand others instead of judging them. Forgiveness helps people move on by letting go of anger. Compassion makes us want to help and care about others. These good qualities help end arguments, bring people together, and make the world a nicer place. If we use them, we make better choices for ourselves and everyone around us. In busy ancient Jerusalem, full of people and noise from the markets and temples, lived a teenager named Trip. He came from a merchant family and grew up in comfort, never having to face the tough times many others did in the city. Because he was always focused on making money and becoming important, Trip became selfish and stopped caring about the people around him. Trip grew up having everything he needed. His father ran a successful business selling spices, fabrics, and valuable items to people from all over Judea, and even farther away. From a young age, Trip was taught that making money was the most important thing. He learned to bargain hard, ignore feelings, and think that being generous was a sign of weakness. While other kids played outside in the dusty streets, Trip focused on ways to make more money and dreamed of making his family even richer. As Trip got older, he had to take care of business along the busy road between Jerusalem and Jericho. This road twisted through empty hills and dangerous valleys and was well known for robbers and sudden storms. Still, Trip only saw ways to make money and never worried about the risks, because he believed he could handle any trouble with money and cleverness. He traveled with servants and guards, hardly ever thinking of them as real people, and treated everyone he met like they were part of a business deal. When poor people or hurt travelers asked him for help along the way, Trip just looked the other way, thinking that their problems were their own fault and not his responsibility. In the busy center of Jerusalem, the marketplace was full of people and noise. Merchants shouted about their goods, and the air was thick with the smells of spices, sweat, and dust. Trip looked at a customer as he nervously held his cup.
10 denarii for the saffron, not a coinless,
He said firmly. The customer paused, looking down at the few worn coins in his hand. Trip's eyes narrowed as he remembered what his father always said. Never back down, son. Profit comes first.
If you don't have enough, check the next stall.
Trip said, turning away as the customer's shoulders slumped. The sound of coins and Trip's sharp orders filled the marketplace. Later, when a servant came over, looking nervous and holding out a broken sandal, Trip barely glanced up.
That's not my problem,
He muttered, waving the man away while some apprentices nearby laughed. The servant faded into the crowd, and no one noticed how cold Trip was, except for the person who felt it most. During one of his numerous journeys to Jericho over the years, Trip traveled along the road as dusk approached, the strong wind tugging at his cloak. He couldn't stop thinking about the things he had learned and the strange feelings that bothered him. He remembered seeing a poor woman shaking by the temple steps, holding out her hand and looking at him with desperate eyes. Trip had ignored her, walking by with his head held high and thinking,
if being kind made people rich, I'd have nothing.
Now, that memory bothered him, making him feel cold inside and unable to forget it. The road twisted through empty hills. Trip traveled with guards, who were just blurry shapes in the dusty air, and didn't seem important to him. Every time he talked to someone, it felt like a business deal, and he never did anything without thinking about what he'd get out of it. Even though he felt safe with so much protection, he couldn't shake a nervous feeling inside. He remembered what the merchant had warned him. The bandits in Jericho don't make deals. Suddenly, Trip was attacked. Brandon, a famous thief, jumped out from behind some rocks. Everything happened so quickly that Trip was hurt and completely confused. His expensive cloak was stained with blood, and he ended up lying on the hard ground, dizzy and with all his things stolen. The guards had fled, leaving him alone without protection. The sun was bright and hot above him, making Tripp realize how powerless he really was. Footsteps got closer. It was his priest. The priest's robes were bright, and he looked at Tripp, but then his face showed he was unsure. Tripp tried to speak, but the priest quickly looked away. He made up his mind right away. "I can't help you, Tripp, because of the purity laws," the priest said, and then walked off, crossing to the other side of the road. This was the same priest who taught on the Sabbath from the books of Moses. He was always saying that we should love God with all our heart, soul, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. Tripp had always thought the priest was smart and good, but now, was I not his neighbor? How could this priest justify himself? Then a Levite friend of his arrived, his shape clear in the fading sunlight. Tripp remembered times they laughed together and shared meals, but now his friend didn't meet his eyes. Instead, fear showed on his face. I'm sorry, Tripp," he said quietly. The Levite hurried off, leaving Tripp alone in silence, crossing to the other side of the road. Lying hurt on the ground, Tripp's mind raced. He remembered turning away the beggar, ignoring the servant, and making fun of people who tried to be generous. The faces in his memory faded, but he couldn't forget how disappointed they looked.
Is this really who I am now?
He thought, his heart heavy with regret. Being left alone by people he used to count on hurting him even more than his injuries, the burning sun, the pain in his body, and the empty feeling inside made him realize that his selfish way of living was falling apart. As night fell, Tripp felt his regret growing stronger. Filled with fear and seeking forgiveness, he turned to God.
"Oh, God, please help me. I'll do anything. Just please help me."
Out of nowhere, a kind stranger appeared and had compassion on him. Gordon was a Samaritan and a follower of Jesus Christ. When he saw Tripp, he didn't see him as an enemy, but as someone who needed help. Even though Jews and Samaritans usually didn't get along and often disliked each other, Gordon remembered what Jesus taught about kindness, love, and forgiveness for everyone. Gordon was used to being treated badly by Jews because he was from Samaria, but he had learned to be strong and to look past old grudges. Gordon heard Jesus speak about God's kingdom and, moved by his message of compassion, began to reconsider his lifelong resentment. After Jesus healed his injury on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, Gordon felt genuinely loved. That act of mercy not only restored him physically, but also inspired him to treat others, including Tripp, with Christ-like kindness. On a quiet night, cool air drifted along the dusty road between Jerusalem and Jericho. You could smell the olive trees nearby, and lanterns sparkled in the hills, making patterns on the ground. Gordon leaned over Tripp, who was hurt and lying on the path. The only sounds were Gordon's animal quietly bleating and the gentle clinking of oil bottles as Gordon cleaned Tripp's cuts. Gordon moved carefully, showing real kindness because his heart had changed after learning from Jesus. Above them, stars shined down, watching this moment of mercy that crossed old boundaries and brought two people together. As the nights went by and Tripp started to heal, he stayed in a small inn, where the smell of burning lantern oil and fresh bread filled the air. Gordon was always there, looking after him while crickets sang outside and the quiet voices of travelers echoed through the hall. One evening, as the lantern's light flickered on the walls, Gordon leaned in and softly said,
"Tripp, I used to be angry and hold grudges, and I thought I'd never get over it. But when I met Jesus, he taught me about a compassionate love that tells us to forgive even the people who hurt us. That's why I'm here for you, because he forgave me.
Gordon put a comforting hand on Tripp's shoulder, letting him know he wasn't alone in his regret. The inn was quiet, and the lantern's soft light danced on the stone walls. The smell of fresh bread and burning oil filled the room. Outside, crickets chirped in the distance, adding to Tripp's worries and doubts. Gordon spoke gently, but with confidence, and Tripp hung on to his words, grateful for someone to hold on to.
Tripp,
Gordon said softly, looking at him with kindness.
real change doesn't happen because we try hard enough on our own. It happens when we let Jesus Christ help us. The message is simple. God loves you, even though we all mess up sometimes. That's why Jesus came. He died for our mistakes, came back to life, and gives forgiveness to anyone who believes in him. You don't have to prove you're good enough. You just need to trust him, ask for forgiveness, and give your life to him.
Gordon held Tripp's shoulder, making sure he supported.
When you accept Christ's love, you get a fresh start. His love gives you the power to ask for forgiveness and to be kind to others. If you want, Tripp, you can begin again, loved, forgiven, and whole.
Tripp nodded, but deep down he felt unsure and worried. Everything Gordon said brought back memories he wished he could forget. He thought of the time he turned away a hungry servant, his words harsh and uncaring. He remembered feeling guilty when a customer's eyes begged him for fairness, but he took more than his share anyway. The warmth of the inn felt uncomfortable, almost smothering, and the quiet sounds of travelers walking by in the hallway made Tripp wish he could escape or be forgiven. As the night went on, Tripp's worries grew stronger. He wondered if the people he had hurt would ever believe he had changed. Could he ever fix the mistakes he'd made? The lantern's light made long shadows on the cracked floor as Tripp knelt by his small bed. The air smelled like old leather and ashes, and his knees hurt from kneeling on the rough ground. In the silence, he remembered a time he laughed at a beggar, not realizing how much his cruel words hurt. Shame filled him, cold and hard to ignore. Tripp fell to his face on the floor and prayed.
Lord Jesus,
Tripp whispered, his voice shaking.
I am so sorry I have sinned against you and my fellow men. I give my heart to you. Please forgive me for everything I've done. I remember so many I have hurt. I'm afraid those I hurt might never forgive me, but I ask you to help me start over.
Tears rolled down Tripp's face, and the soft sound of the fire helped calm his troubled heart. He felt the heavy feeling inside him slowly fade away, replaced by a gentle hope that came from letting go. When morning came, sunlight filled the room, mixing with the smells of fresh bread and wet earth. Tripp got up, feeling stronger and humbler, and saw Gordon waiting for him.
I'm ready.
Tripp said softly, his voice honest.
I want to fix what I've done wrong. I'll ask my customers, my family, and my friends to forgive me.
Gordon's eyes shone with compassion as he stepped forward, the lantern light reflecting his Christ like nature. He grabbed Tripp's hand, his grip strong and reassuring.
Go to them. Speak honestly. Let them see how much you've changed.
Together, they thanked God, feeling hopeful for the future as the morning sun began to shine outside their window. With a new sense of purpose, Tripp started his journey to make things right. In the busy markets, surrounded by shouting sellers and the smell of roasting nuts and fresh bread, he went up to the people he had hurt before. His hands shook and his voice was nervous as he said,
I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me. I want to fix what I did.
Some people looked at him coldly, while others looked more understanding. But every conversation helped Tripp change a little more. The regret he felt was heavy, but each nod and handshake slowly helped him feel lighter. Days later, after the busy markets were just a memory, Tripp came back home. The warm glow from the lanterns lit up the walls, shining on the worried faces sitting around the table. Tripp took a shaky breath and spoke quietly, but with honesty.
"I've found forgiveness through Jesus,"
he said, looking into the eyes of his wife and kids. For a moment, nobody spoke. The fire popped in the hearth, and the smell of stew filled the room. His oldest son looked away, doubt showing on his face. "How do we know this is true?" he asked softly. Tripp's wife wiped away a few tears, unsure whether to believe or hope. His youngest daughter, holding her old blanket, moved closer to Tripp, wanting to feel safe in his gentle words.
"I know I've let you down,"
Tripp said, his voice shaky.
"but I want to share this hope with you. Can we try to move forward together?"
He reached out and held his wife's hand, feeling comfort and warmth as their fingers touched. Little by little, his family started to believe him, seeing how honest he was and feeling the truth in his words. His wife hugged him tightly, showing forgiveness, and his son's guarded attitude faded, turning into cautious trust. Even though the night outside was cold, inside their home, the feeling of togetherness and hope started to grow. After reconciling with his family, Tripp still felt unsettled about Brandon, the thief who had attacked him. Wanting to offer forgiveness, Tripp met Brandon at the edge of Jericho as night approached. Brandon appeared guarded but nervous. Guilt lingered from their past encounter. Tripp expressed his intention to forgive, referencing Gordon's kindness and Jesus' teachings on compassion and second chances. Though Brandon was skeptical, Tripp assured him that anyone could be forgiven. The shared silence and honesty shifted something in both men. Tripp found gratitude in his courage, and Brandon grew hopeful for a new beginning. Remembering Jesus feeding the crowd, Brandon realized that being forgiven and shown kindness could prompt real change within him. The miracle of Jesus feeding thousands with just a few loaves and fishes was more than a moment of supernatural provision. It was a profound display of compassion and divine power. In that story, the hungry crowd gathered with little hope, yet Jesus met both their physical and spiritual needs, demonstrating that God's love knows no limits. As Brandon thought about this miracle, he felt that same sense of possibility stirring within himself. The bread and fish multiplied because of Jesus' compassion, and in the same way, forgiveness and grace could multiply inside Brandon's heart, making room for transformation he never believed was possible. It was not just about being fed, but about being seen, accepted, and cared for despite shortcomings. The miracle reminded Brandon that real change doesn't come from striving alone. It comes from receiving grace and letting it work within, reshaping attitudes and actions. This realization was a turning point. Just as Jesus' power turned scarcity into abundance, Brandon understood that receiving kindness and forgiveness could spark a new beginning. The great miracle was not only about feeding the crowd, but also about awakening hope and inspiring those who witnessed it to spread kindness themselves. Brandon felt compelled to let go of old guilt and open himself to the new life offered by grace, believing that the same power which fed thousands could heal his heart and guide his steps toward genuine change. Brandon surrendered to Christ, joining Tripp and Gordon in their mission to live with compassion, kindness, and forgiveness. The three of them, though very different, became proof that showing grace can bring people together and change lives. Their friendship showed that even the toughest walls can be broken down by kindness, and that anyone can find a new beginning if they're willing to accept it.